Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines. XR, please. I can't even talk this morning. I'm just so happy my throat is back. We're getting better and I love it. Things are feeling good. XRP supply shock. It's a very real thing. We're going to get into it today. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and DigPerspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $4.15 trillion market cap for crypto. The market's off 1.1%. Bitcoin 116,000 plus, Ethereum 4,500 plus, XRP $3.04. Now we're off 2.6 on the 24, and we're off 0.1 on the 7-day. Look at the range of price. Ranging between 303 and 313. So we're on the bottom side of that range here. And we will look at some TA. I think that will make you feel better going into the weekend. I want to remind you about Caleb and Brown, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I'm getting so much messages and DMs and response where people are like, I've never experienced anything like this. It's remarkable. I literally just had someone yesterday send me a message and was like, hey, I opened an account. I had a meeting with my broker and they stayed on the phone with me while I moved my assets. Have you ever heard of such a thing? It's unbelievable. That's why you can just check this out for yourself. XRPwealth589.com. You've never experienced anything like it. Free institutional grade custody, no hidden fees or spreads, one flat rate. You're going to love it. Check it out and see for yourself. XRPwealth589.com. Get started today. Everybody else is loving it and they know, and you'll know why as soon as you check it out. Gary Gensler on the hot seat. I have to play this because for one, CNBC has turned on their own, which is Gary Gensler. And I mean, it is just one shot at him after another here. It's nice to see. Let's take a listen to this.
They are reversing a lot of what you did.
Hold on. I probably just broke your eardrums with that, and I apologize. And I'm having some sound issues, which I know you guys are aware of. I get messages about that too. Hang in there with me. My low budget ass is working on it. Let's get this here, see if we can get it right now.
They are reversing a lot of what you did. And how are you feeling about what they're doing now?
So I'm very proud of what we accomplished.
And the crypto community is ecstatic not to have you there anymore and to have him there. Looking back on it, I mean, do you think that was the right call?
Yes, I think.
Because look, now we have this like burgeoning industry and there's so much more innovation and leadership in the US.
And a lot more
crypto.
capital coming into it.
And now he chimes in. He throws his hand up like, hey, talk to the hand.
There may be more capital in terms of the interest in the public. The public is interested. I get that. But for investors,
You think this is dangerous, what they're doing?
put aside Bitcoin, but most of the other tokens are not tied to any fundamentals. Like Warren Buffett would say, what are the goods? What are the revenues? What are they selling? And so forth.
So I just had to play that and share that because it feels so good to see him getting stuffed by the same news network that elevated him for an entire term. Unbelievable. Entire 4-year term of that administration. Meanwhile, Ripple, Franklin Templeton, DBS have teamed up to provide tokenized money market funds using Ripple's Real USD. We know that this is also about building out the back end repo market, which is the lending market from bank to bank on the back end. And it's usually here of late in the last couple of years since the pandemic, the Federal Reserve has been covering the gap on that lending for banks in the back end of the repo market. And it is massive, ladies and gentlemen, and they're building it on the XRP ledger. And yesterday we had the Rex XRP spot ETF go live, and it was a resounding success. In fact, The XRP spot ETF with the ticker XRPR hit $37.7 million in the first day of trading. It's the highest natural day one volume of any 2025 ETF launch. How about that one? That's how that's going, ladies and gentlemen. And then we have this as a reminder about what the rest of these ETF approvals are going to do to this space. Bring about $8 billion worth of tidal wave of institutional money into the space. Take a listen to the CEO from crypto.com.
Next couple of years, I think altcoins that have strong flows will outperform. I don't know if you guys seen this, but there's a forecast saying that the ETF for XRP is going to attract 8 billion of inflows next year. So you can.
That's remarkable. 8 billion? Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. Bring it on, ladies and gentlemen, because that is a part of this supply shock conversation that we're about to talk about. And then think about this too while we're at it. Now, we're right on the cusp of getting the Clarity Act passed, which is the market infrastructure bill, which is critically important to opening up the institutional involvement into this space. And what do we have? We have Ripple Swell coming up, and it's in New York. That's right, where Wall Street is. And all of Wall Street's damn near there. NASDAQ, BNY, Citi, BlackRock, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton, JP Morgan Chase, CME Group, Moody's, State Street, DBS, and many more. That's who's going to be at Ripple Swell. It is fascinating to me. We are literally on the edge of watching this thing roll out and the entire financial legacy system adopting this technology. That's what I see happening here. And to go to that point and to add to this conversation, I want to bring in this clip from a sit-down interview with Black Swan Capitalist brothers. Shout out to Versan and Vandel. These guys are super brilliant, rising stars. And it was really nice for DAI and myself to sit down and talk to these two gentlemen. I want to thank them greatly for having us. And just listen to this clip right here, and we'll build out the conversation from there.
So according to everybody, Robbie Mitchnick and Susan Athey are the only people who have ever done a legitimate XRP valuation, right? When they did the valuation in 2018. Then he just happens to go to BlackRock. Then he takes the Ripple affiliation off of his LinkedIn, didn't he, Brad?
Yep.
He took it off, and then now all he can talk about is Bitcoin. Now, I've got this igloo in South Georgia. It's only 80 or 90 degrees here. I'll sell it to you. I keep telling my audience, I'll sell it to you if you believe that this guy only understands Bitcoin and that's it. And BlackRock won't talk about anything else. Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're the only two ETFs. I guess BlackRock only has a Bitcoin, don't they? That's nonsense. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of time. I mean, all you got to do is send some Bitcoin and send some XRP, and that's nonsense.
Agreed. Right.
Yeah, I feel like, of course they're getting in, right? And of course they're not going to tell us that they're getting in. It's like this is what talking your book means, right? Talking your book is, you're talking about Bitcoin, but you're really over here loading up on XRP, right? Or you're trashing XRP even, and then loading up on it. And it's not illegal to do that, right? Financial institutions do this stuff all the time. And if they want to accumulate it, why would they ever talk about it? Because then everybody else will start buying it, So to me, it's one of those things where it's just inevitable, right? But this has been and you guys have go through this too, right? Like we are in this space because we love investing. And when you get a hold of this particular investment, you become obsessed with it when you realize what its actual intended use is, because you understand how serious and the weight of it is. And it forces you to speculate, right? It forces you to speculate from a place of concrete, a foundational place, right? Like, what it's designed to do, what it's for. So it's just, I even liken this back to like pre-allocation of XRP escrow, right? Which I took a beating on forever, right? But the truth of the matter is we end up being vindicated because we found out that 5 billion XRP were pre-allocated in an option contract to R3. Then we find out that Greg Kidd had a 1% pre-allocated option contract on 1% of all the float of XRP, right? So then it was like, then the people in the community were like, whoa, that was just them two. It was like, okay, so you're telling me that those were the only two people or entities smart enough to arrange a pre-allocated option contract. Bank of America didn't do it. BIS didn't do it. Right? The IMF didn't do it. Just Greg Kidd and R3 did it. See, the person who believes that is not as smart as the person who understands what that information means. That's what that tells me.
There you have it right there. These guys got it out of us. I tell you, man, it was a great conversation. I wish I could play the entire thing, but I'm going to encourage you to go to their channel and watch it because wait a minute. Am I being shadow banned? I've been following him forever. That's crazy. You know? Anyway, side note, give these guys a follow. I absolutely love their content and what they're doing in this space, and they just bring so much information. It was just wonderful to sit down and have that conversation with them. This is why I say the Shane Ellis theory is in motion. And once the XRP ETFs are approved, we could see, like here, and this is Julio Marino, excuse me, head of research at CryptoQuant, says between 1 and 4% of XRP circulating supply could be absorbed by ETFs alone in the first year. That's anywhere from 600 million to 2.4 billion tokens taken off the market. And I'm here to tell you, if that happens, we're going to see a price floor start to form for XRP. And that is one of the largest goals to start to realize, is that there becomes this really, really deep price floor that it doesn't dip below, because there's sustainability in volume and liquidity on the network. That is where we get very, very powerful with XRP. And then you add in Ripple and the National Trust Bank Charter license, ladies and gentlemen. Now think of it. Now what happens when they get that? And we could see them get this license as early as late October, early November. They had a 120-day period. So we should be about October, November when we hear something on this. And if they get that in the Fed master account, you have to wonder and ask yourself, why would they be getting such a serious bank charter and a serious Fed master account connection? And they're just going to willy-nilly keep dumping and not dumping, but keep allowing exchanges to have access to XRP in this manner? I don't know. I think we could see a change is going to come, is what I think is going to happen, because once the banks know they're able to play in this world and there's no confusion. And just let me quickly say, for those that don't remember, there's a lot of people at different age groups. You may not remember when the internet was coming on at the time. Doctors and lawyers weren't allowed to use fax machines. They weren't allowed to use emails because those were new technologies at the time. And you weren't allowed to use them because they have confidentiality issues between patients and clients, right? So legally and medically. So there had to be rules put through before they could start using those communications to move confidential information. So I see the same similarity here with the market infrastructure bill. Once we get the Clarity Act, which is going to be the market infrastructure, and that clarity's there, I think you're going to see a shift in the way that they start to allocate these assets around the financial system itself. And I think you're going to see a wide introduction of the legacy financial institutions using assets in the XRP ledger broadly. And that's one of the reasons that I feel like getting a national charter license and getting the Fed master account is setting the stage for probably a new direction for how all of this would go. It's the great pivot from retail to speculation, right? I mean, it's the great pivot right there is what I see. Now, here's another clip from the same interview. We have a different conversation where we do talk about the supply shock, and Verson sets this entire part of this conversation up for DAI and myself here. Take a listen.
And there's going to be a moment in time as this adoption continues, and it's expanding ever since its inception, where they're going to be ready to migrate. And that will most likely come after some orchestrated scenario where the demand is necessary and inevitable at that point. And that kind of creates that big supply shock. Other people call it flip the switch moment. So, I mean, it's very possible. There are a few angles to look at all of this. But when you factor in the global debt, absorbing all liquidity, currency, stable coins, you name it, there's no real price ceiling for XRP. And that's what I think your friend was explaining. It's not meant for retail. It was really meant for large scale movement of value. So I would say like XRP owning it is essentially having access to the global supply, you know what I mean, of money or value, you could say.
I've always thought about this. Oh, sorry. Go, Brad.
No, I just want to say something really quickly. You know, we don't go out and buy barrels of oil, but I can go get a quart of oil for my car.
Good point. Very good point.
And XRP is like oil for the monetary system, or water, if you will, right? So, you know, we don't go buy and sell barrels and barrels of oil to each other, but governments do. Countries and governments and companies do, but they have a license to do so, right? So, you know, remember, XRP is divisible by 1 million drops.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to say that when it goes to a high price, you still couldn't get it. You just physically can't get it the same way that everybody else got it while we were getting it. You know, it's just not available that way. It doesn't mean you have lost access to it. You just financially can't acquire it because of where it is in price, right?
Exactly.
So now you're buying drops of it instead. You're getting a quart of oil because you don't buy barrels of oil now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is kind of like what we're looking at. You know, you mentioned supply shock too. I absolutely think like these round of ETFs, if we get all these horses in the gate, you're talking just under 20 ETFs waiting for an approval. Think about the supply shock that that's going to do. JP Morgan's talking about 8 billion pulled off the market for XRP in a month if they approve all these ETFs at once.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. It's stair steps to liquidity. Now add in this, just like Sal Gilberti said on Paul Barron's show. What if you have Ripple get the banking charter and the Federal Reserve master account, and then they announce, you know what, we got the license. We're actually going to stop putting the XRP on the exchanges and go a different way with it.
Yes, that will eventually happen, in my opinion. I agree with you entirely.
And then the ETFs suck up what liquidity's off of the exchanges to make good to back the qualified custodial hold on the asset. So it's really, these things are not far away, that they just a 3 degrees one way or another. And this conversation gets very, very real very quickly.
Very quick.
It really, really does, ladies and gentlemen. And shout out to all of those guys. We had such a great time talking with them, and I hope to do it again very soon. But here is, in fact, Sal Gilberti on Paul Barron's show talking about that exact idea of a supply shock because of Ripple getting the bank charter and the Fed master account.
You guys have been around for a long time, so you've seen these market cycles ebb and flow, and now we're in one where digital assets are now finally kind of growing up and making their way to Wall Street and their trek to Washington and all of that. You say it's a nascent market. How big could this be?
I think that crypto can be bigger than anyone imagines, because the people who focus on cap table and say there's not enough money to make these cap tables that big, that's not true, because it's got nothing to do with the amount of money. I mean, it does have to do with the amount of money, but not all of the crypto is going to be out there trading. So the cap table, you know, it's like an AI company being worth, you know, $500 billion. It's because there are only a limited number of shares that actually trade on that thing. And so that's how it's going to work with crypto. People are going to buy it and hold it and store it.
Listen.
You know, what's Ripple going to do with its 40 billion XRP? Given that they filed to be a bank, you know, there's one of the leading theories that they just hold that on their balance sheet. They get their banking license and they become a top 20 capitalized bank in the world. That's with XRP at $3. XRP goes to, you know, some multiple of $3. They become a top 10 bank or even the top bank in terms of capitalization. That's pretty astounding.
That would be insanely astounding. And I think
yes, it would. And you know what? The stage is set for something exactly like that to take place, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's going on here. Now, let's just bring it back boots to the ground here. Looking at this, as long as XRP does not close below $3 on the daily or 3-day time frame, we're set for takeoff. That's what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen. All those price targets we're looking for, we just need to stay above that mark for the daily and the 3-day time frame, and everything stays exactly where we need it to, which is on a bullish trajectory. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. We're going into the freedom zone. I hope you will join us. Today, we're going to go in and hear a piece of information that really kind of encapsulates, what drives me when I focus on where I'm going in my life and the things that I'm working on for myself and my family and beyond. And even things that include every single one of you. So you could join us in the Freedom Zone too. Just click the link underneath the video. You could join us Patreon, X, or on YouTube. Same price, same perks, all your daily videos with 0 Google ads. I hope you will come in and join us. This stuff is really fun for me to go over, and I know a lot of people are digging it as well. We're getting started right now. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. Come on in.